In almost every election, political parties promise something free. Free TVs, free laptops, free mixers and grinders, free electricity, free bus travel, and off late direct cash deposits to women. In Tamil Nadu, these promises have become almost a political tradition. But here is the big question. Are these welfare schemes or are they electoral freebies meant to win votes? Even the Supreme Court of India asked this question, and what was its answer? Hello, I'm D. Suresh Kumar, and you're watching Tamil Nadu Elections with the Hindu. Today, we are diving into one of the most fascinating and controversial issues in Indian democracy, freebies in election manifestos. With the Tamil Nadu Assembly elections approaching, political parties from the DMK to the ADMK to the TVK of Actor Vijay, all of them have once again promised a range of welfare schemes, and most of these involve direct cash transfer components to targeted population as well as free gold. But what does the Constitution say? What has the Supreme Court ruled, and can these promises actually be stopped? Let's break it down. The legal battle over election freebies, which began in 2006, culminated in the Supreme Court in a landmark case, S. Subramaniam Balaji versus Government of Tamil Nadu. The case challenged schemes like free color television sets, mixers and grinders, laptops, fans, free rice. These promises were made in the Assembly election manifestos by the DMK and ADMK in 2006 and 2011. The argument against them was simple: using taxpayers' money to give consumer goods to voters would amount to electoral bribery. But the Supreme Court took a very nuanced view. It ruled that promises made in election manifestos do not amount to corrupt practices under election law. Why? Because election law targets individual candidates, not political parties, and a manifesto is essentially a policy promise of a future government, not a direct inducement by a candidate. So, legally speaking, freebies in manifestos were not illegal, but the court also sounded a warning. While upholding the legality of the manifestos, the Supreme Court made a critical observation. It said freebie promises can influence voters and affect free and fair elections. And that concern led to an important step. The court directed the ECI, that is Election Commission of India, to frame guidelines for manifestos. And these guidelines say political parties must ensure their manifestos do not violate constitutional principles, do not unduly influence voters, and most importantly, explain how the promises will be funded. In other words, if a party promises welfare schemes, it should also tell the voters where the money will come from, because ultimately the money comes from public funds. Now let's fast forward to recent hearings in the Supreme Court in a Tamil Nadu related case. Last month, the court once again expressed serious concern about indiscriminate distribution of freebies by state governments. The Chief Justice of India asked a very blunt question. If states are running huge deficits, how can they still afford to distribute scooters, clothes, and other goods during elections? The court said governments must prioritize infrastructure, hospitals, schools, and development projects instead of random largis. The court also pointed out a deeper problem. Sometimes these benefits are not even targeted. Even affluent people end up receiving them before the poor. And that, the court warned, defeats the very purpose of welfare. But here is where the debate becomes complicated. Not everything given by the government is a freebie. India's constitution actually encourages welfare policies. The directive principles of state policy require the government to reduce inequality, improve living standards, and support weaker sections of society. So, schemes like free education, public health care, food subsidies, and scholarships are widely accepted as legitimate welfare measures. But the real controversy arises when governments distribute consumer goods or cash benefits that may have little long term economic value. Critics call these vote buying populism, but supporters say they improve quality of life and social equity, and that debate remains unresolved. So, the Supreme Court has drawn a careful line. Election freebies may not be illegal, but they raise serious questions about responsible governance and the use of public money. In a democracy, political parties will always promise welfare. But the real question is this: where does welfare end and where do electoral freebies begin? Because ultimately, every promise made in a manifesto is paid for by the public exchequer. As Tamil Nadu heads into another elections with a huge fiscal deficit burden, that debate is only going to get louder. And in the end, it is not the courts, not the election commission, but the voters who must decide whether these promises are genuine welfare or simply politics. And that is why the final verdict on freebies is delivered not in the Supreme Court, but in the polling booth where you are going to cast your votes. Thank you for watching.